Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining today for the Fitchburg Fire Department is our friend Mark Maleka. He's back. He's ready to rock our socks with some fire safety tips and more. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm good. We almost missed January.
Whoa. We were never going to miss January.
Okay, well, almost.
January 31st today. Anyway, yeah, we are here. Mark, you and I actually saw each other a little bit earlier at a fire scene recently, and it brought up a good talking point for us on today's segment. We're going to talk about two different things. We're going to talk about sprinklers and how they save lives, and also we'll be talking about making sure to clear your hydrants out with snow and ice. First, we'll start with the sprinkler piece, and the reason we're bringing this up, there was a recent fire on January 24th, and the sprinkler not only did its job, but the benefits of sprinkler systems are amazing, and it was awesome. It did what it was supposed to.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it. In this instance, it was an accidental fire. It happened very near a sprinkler head. So for those who don't know how sprinkler heads work, only the heads that receive heat will activate. So to throw Die Hard under the bus, the entire building doesn't get wet when a sprinkler head is activated. Only the area that is underneath that one head, right? And that's important to know because that's a very focused area of fire prevention, right? It's only doing the job in the place that it needs to do the job. So in this case, we had one head activate. It immediately extinguished the fire and caused very little fire spread to the point where, as an investigator, there was no charring and there was no damage really to the walls. The thing that needed to be cleaned up afterward was, of course, the water. But absolutely no charring, no structural damage. As a general rule, all 26 apartments, with the exception of the one, were able to go back into their homes and sleep that night. Had we not had that sprinkler head, I don't think any of them would have been sleeping in the building that night.
And that's maybe the next question here is, in your experience from what you've seen, sprinkler, not sprinkler, the outcomes are really different.
Yeah, they're grossly different. I can tell you, we had another sprinkler activation earlier in the year, and it was from a kitchen fire. And my experience is kitchen fires, that fire occurred in an apartment that wasn't occupied at the moment. Okay, that was also an accidental fire. Mm-hmm. That fire was completely extinguished by the sprinkler head with no occupants home. So we were notified by the fire alarm going off. The fire alarm system oversees the sprinkler system and alerts us, right? We show up, fire's out. We can very cleanly see where the fire occurred, and we had to shut the water down, and there was some water damage afterwards. But by and large, the entire building was left intact. The same thing occurred yesterday. It's just, even after almost 25 years being in the business, I'm still regularly surprised at how effective sprinklers are. And they truly do save lives and property.
And are we seeing more home fire sprinkler systems being installed now? Because I think I always thought of it as it was more businesses related or apartment buildings, just because of the number of people and what, but.
Yeah, so I would love to tell you that we are seeing more. And I think overall, looking back through my career, we're seeing more now than we did. We're still not seeing enough.
Sure.
When people build houses, they're sometimes not aware that there's the availability of a sprinkler system. They're also not aware that the cost has come down considerably. People don't have any kind of qualms about putting a granite countertop inside of their apartment or their home, but for less than the cost of that granite countertop, they could have installed fire sprinklers, and they would effectively have a firefighter waiting to spray water on any fire that occurs, whether they're there or not.
And they're strategically placed too, right? So we see them placed mm-hmm. in spots where we routinely see fires.
Well, the code actually calls for 100% coverage at the floor.
Wow.
So wherever there is floor space, minus cabinets and kitchen tables and things like that, those happen, right? But generally speaking, wherever there's floor space, there's a sprinkler head that is covering that area.
And how much water can actually push through it? I told you I wouldn't ask you statistics or anything, but just to kind of gauge on that, like, is it spray until you guys come and shut it off? And then how much is it dumping?
So once activated, there is no shut off until we get there and turn it off. And that's actually, I'm going to go off a little bit on this and say that to any apartment managers or owners out there, if a sprinkler head activates, let it run until we come in and we can check the area with our thermal cameras, right? But to answer the question, it has to be shut off by a firefighter. How much water really depends on the sprinkler system. So if we get into a warehouse and we have high piled storage, that's a lot of water. And it's a lot of water probably coming at you at anywhere between 80 and 100 psi. So the water that's involved in most residential applications or an office application is much less, and it has much less pressure. That said, it's still a lot. I mean, it's plenty. And an interesting side note about sprinklers is they're really not designed to save lives or property. What they're designed to do is provide the occupants an extra measure of time to escape the building. So,
interesting.
Yeah, so that's really the premise behind a sprinkler system. But they're so effective that they do such a great job of extinguishing the fire most of the time, or controlling it to where it's very little and it's unable to spread, or just saving the building from the fire effects itself.
Final question, and it's the outcome of fire damage versus water damage. So when you see we know that the sprinklers can be effective in putting out that fire, but in your experience, when you're looking at those two factors, which one's easier to come back from? Every situation is different. I recognize that, but
sure. And I'm going to caveat this answer because I recently had a resident who was unhappy with the fact that the fire department touted the sprinkler save, but didn't really acknowledge via our press release the water damage that occurred. So this resident actually lived below a unit where a sprinkler had put out a fire. And it was a learning curve for me, right? I have spent my entire career promoting sprinkler systems, not thinking a whole lot about the water damage or worrying too much about it. The truth of it is, as I know it, is that if the building catches fire, everybody's out for upwards of a year and a half while they rebuild either the building or that portion of the building. With water damage, they might be out for a couple of weeks while things get dried out and drywall gets replaced, and there will be some expense. But if you're weighing the two, I would take the water damage every day of the week.
I think that's important to know. But in every situation, we recognize can be a little bit different. So, take it for what it's worth. But I think when you're, again, kind of looking at this as a whole, there's a reason there's sprinkler systems. And good point, too, that it is to help. It's a tool like a smoke detector to get you out quickly. I think that's... So, I didn't even think about that necessarily. I think of it as, hey, it's going to put out the fire. All right.
So something else that the sprinkler system does, and I'll use both of these cases, that sprinkler system is monitored by the fire alarm. Okay, the fire alarm is actually what calls 911. So the fire alarm recognizes that water's moving within the system and spraying somewhere. It automatically dials 911. That gets an earlier start to the fire department so that we can get there as quick as possible and we can get our arms around whatever is happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you got to almost think of all the tools that you have available. You can have a smoke detector, you can have the sprinkler system, you can have it connected so it gets the resources going.
Absolutely.
All of those things effective makes a pretty darn good plan, though.
It's wildly effective.
Well, as much as I want to stay talking about the sprinkler part, we've got just a little bit of part to get to the snow removal part. And I know this winter has been probably a little bit easier on all of us. But being out at that specific apartment fire we were just talking about, I'd asked you the question about, hey, what have you guys been seeing out there for people removing snow? And more importantly, how effective is that in time-wise when you're trying to put a fire out?
Yeah, so much like CPR, minutes matter, seconds matter, right? So when we pull up to a fire, one of the things that our truck operators need to do is establish a water supply immediately. That's what our fire hydrants are there for. If they have to dig through the snow, or they have to dig through where the plows have pushed snow up to get to that hydrant to establish that connection, those are seconds that are lost. That's work that's being done at the hydrant and not at the building that's actually needing the suppression. So we encourage everybody to go out and shovel the hydrants around their area. That said, if we show up and we need to, we'll dig it out, right? But we just don't have the manpower to go out and dig everybody's out. So we do ask the homeowners to do it. I've made a practice, of course it's my job, but the hydrant nearest my home is across the street and down a house. This last round of snow, I went over with my snow blower and I cleared out that 3 foot, right? It's not on my land, so technically it's not my responsibility, but I want that hydrant accessible if my house becomes the problem, right? So even if that hydrant doesn't sit directly on yours, you're still protecting your own home by making sure that hydrant is cleared out.
Yeah, minutes matter. When you said that, I like the comparison with CPR into that.
Yep.
It counts. Every second counts.
Yeah, so a fire will double in size if gone unchecked every 30 seconds to a minute.
Jeez.
So if that fire is continuing to double and redouble, those extra seconds that are spent shoveling out the hydrant versus connecting to the hydrant and getting things going for our firefighters, those seconds matter. They sure do.
Yeah. All right, Mark, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to having you back in the month of February.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.